It is said there's an iron rule in Korean dramas. The more affectionate a couple appears, the worse their end will be. Take top divorce attorney Cha Eun-gyeong, who initially is portrayed as successful in both family and career, even hailed as Korea's most successful woman in the past decade. However, one ordinary night, her husband's scandal is accidentally discovered by a new intern. Following the principle that the more you know, the quicker you die, the intern quickly flees the scene only to run into Cha Eun-gyeong as she steps out. Their eyes meet, and the intern realizes her career might be over. Despite joining the company as the top interviewee, she has been in a daze ever since she was assigned to Cha Eun-gyeong's team, mainly because she detests divorce cases, a disdain fostered by Cha Eun-gyeong herself. Back in university, when Cha Eun-gyeong asked her how she would advise a client who cheats yet complains about dealing with a new partner post-divorce, Han Yuri parroted book content. Cha Eun-gyeong dismissed her response as uninspired, even less interesting than an AI's argument, leaving a deep impression on Han Yuri and a lasting dislike for divorce lawyers. Even now, she suspects a mistake in her job placement, confirmed only when a colleague shows her the hiring notice. Meanwhile, Cha Eun-gyeong's boss urges her to be less harsh as their department has already lost 3 newcomers this month. Jung Woo-jin almost pleads to keep Han Yuri, as losing her would be difficult to explain to higher-ups. When they finally meet, Han Yuri's first question is whether she was misplaced and how she could transfer to another department. She even directly asks Cha Eun-gyeong if her assignment was a deliberate act stemming from their university interaction. However, instead of getting angry, Cha Eun-gyeong agrees to help her transfer if she can win 10 consecutive cases. Upon hearing this, Han Yuri instantly felt helpless, knowing that winning 10 cases as an intern was nearly impossible. Seeing her disappointment, Cha Eun-gyeong quickly changed the subject, advising her to buy a car and a watch since, for lawyers, time is of the essence and shouldn't be wasted on commutes. Continually checking the time on a phone is also impolite to clients. After all, Daejeong Law Firm ranks second nationwide and offers salaries 3 times higher than other firms, so she believed their efficiency should be 3 times better as well. With that, she stood up and left, which meant Han Yuri was officially hired. It took a moment for Han Yuri to realize she had become a divorce lawyer under the formidable Cha Eun-gyeong. What overwhelmed her more was that on her first day she was assigned 60 cases and had to go to court the next day. A colleague kindly reminded her that the client would arrive in 10 minutes. When Han Yuri confirmed she was to consult alone, she was about to object when the client arrived with his son. Observing the man, Cha Eun-gyeong immediately analyzed that he appeared to be having an affair, with his son brought as a reluctant witness. Although Cha Eun-gyeong's analysis was logical, Han Yuri remained skeptical, believing one shouldn't judge by appearances alone. Her skepticism was soon proven wrong as the man was indeed being sued for infidelity. However, he vehemently denied this, asserting his loyalty to his wife. Han Yuri naturally didn't believe his side of the story, so he explained that his wife was paranoid, often causing scenes at his office, and even had their son testify to her suspicions. Reluctantly, the son confirmed his father's claims, revealing his mother often made him spy on his father's phone and report his location. Despite his situation, the man did not want to divorce his wife. His convincing act as a good husband immediately persuaded Han Yuri, who promised on the spot to help him dismiss the lawsuit. However, this declaration infuriated Cha Eun-gyeong. Facing her boss's scolding, Han Yuri was defiant, arguing that the man was not only faithful, but deeply loving. Cha Eun-gyeong found Han Yuri's assertions laughable and told her that every cheating husband claims his wife is paranoid, a common tactic. Han Yuri, however, did not believe this, convinced that the son would not lie. Cha Eun-gyeong countered that if a husband was unfaithful, his wife would surely know, even if she lacked proof. These comments puzzled Han Yuri, but she stood by her judgment. Court day arrived, and Han Yuri vigorously defended against the plaintiff's claims, presenting evidence of the wife's paranoia. In the midst of her fervent defense, the opposing lawyer produced evidence of the man's infidelity. Shocked by the explicit messages, Han Yuri was stunned, as this was her first case and she had insisted on trusting her client despite her mentor's objections. Despite her regrets, as a professional lawyer, she continued to argue her case, maintaining the wife's paranoia and even claiming the evidence was fabricated. Her statement immediately outraged the opposing family. Amidst the chaos, The case was postponed. As Han Yuri left the courtroom, she was confronted by the family, who accused her of being biased and immoral, even suggesting she had a special relationship with the man. Unable to respond, she felt perhaps she had indeed made a mistake. Feeling helpless, she retreated to the bathroom, deeply upset, as the insults continued. Watching the disheartened Han Yuri, Cha Eun-gyeong advised her that all scoundrels are the same. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, it would be better to make him admit to the affair and agree to a settlement divorce. However, this would mean that Han Yuri would lose her first case, and internally, she was unwilling to accept that. When Han Yuri returned to the office, the scoundrel shamelessly showed up. Seeing his hypocritical face, Han Yuri exploded in anger and threw out the chat records. Confronted by Han Yuri's questioning, the scoundrel still denied the affair, criticizing her for not believing in her own client. His excuses infuriated Han Yuri even more. His next justification was even more shameless, claiming that the evidence of the affair was just a meal. This ridiculous response made Han Yuri laugh in disbelief. After all, who uses the term enjoy just for eating a meal? It proved there's nothing more shameless than a shameless person. Facing his earnest explanations, Han Yuri felt utterly disheartened. Looking at him, she momentarily felt murderous, unable to believe her first case involved such a despicable person. When she shared the man's ridiculous defenses with Cha Eun-gyeong, Cha Eun-gyeong laughed almost to the point of passing out, even jokingly suggesting Han Yuri use these arguments in her defense. However, at that moment, Han Yuri had no desire to defend him any further. Yet Cha Eun-gyeong encouraged her to persevere, suggesting that winning could bring her closer to transferring departments. But Han Yuri felt that lying was wrong. Cha Eun-gyeong argued that the judgment was up to the judge. Han Yuri just needed to do her job. Cha Eun-gyeong's change in attitude confused Han Yuri, as it contradicted her earlier stance. Despite this, Han Yuri followed Cha Eun-gyeong's advice. Indeed, when everyone heard the scoundrel's arguments, the courtroom burst into laughter. Even the judge struggled to maintain composure. At that moment, Han Yuri presented another piece of evidence, a recording of the opposing party verbally abusing her in the bathroom the previous day, which supported the claim of the wife's paranoia. The opposing lawyer argued that such a recording was illegal and could not be used as evidence. However, Han Yuri had anticipated this and had a response ready, as she had spoken during the recording. Han Yuri's recording of the conversation was not illegal since she was a participant. However, the opposing lawyer argued that only parties initially involved in the conversation are considered participants. Anticipating this, Han Yuri had earlier been accused by the plaintiff's family of being the defendant's mistress right before she entered the restroom, effectively making her an initial participant. She later presented a statement from the son confirming the mother's paranoia, securing a victory in the case under Han Yuri's strategic planning. Despite the win, Han Yuri was not happy, especially after seeing the hysterical wife in the parking lot, which only increased her guilt. Reflecting on the suffering of the wife left her feeling no joy, only endless regret. Soon after, the notice of the winning verdict arrived, and she called the client. However, a woman answered the phone, confirming the wife's suspicions and making Han Yuri dislike the divorce lawyer profession even more. That evening, she went to the office intending to write a resignation letter. Hesitating, she remembered a colleague mentioning a relaxation room on the 16th floor for when one felt lost. Driven by a strange impulse, she went to the 16th floor. Upon opening the door, she heard ambiguous sounds, and despite suspecting it was nothing good, curiosity drove her forward. Meanwhile, Cha Eun-gyeong, who had returned to the office, followed her to the 16th floor. Even though she had guessed what was inside, seeing it with her own eyes shocked her, especially when the man revealed his face. It was Cha Eun-gyeong's husband. Though shocked, Han Yuri managed to carefully flee the scene, knowing too much could be dangerous. Unbeknownst to her, a greater shock awaited. With her mentor and boss in front, and the unfaithful husband behind, a simple hint from Han Yuri now could let Cha Eun-gyeong catch him in the act. After some brief thought, Han Yuri decided to keep the situation hidden for the time being. She greeted Cha Eun-gyeong loudly, which was actually a warning for the two inside the room. Under her casual watch, Cha Eun-gyeong left the place with her. However, Han Yuri remained gloomy afterwards, feeling guilty towards Cha Eun-gyeong. After days of internal struggle, she decided to consult a colleague, thinking it might help her friend minimize losses and escape a bad situation as soon as possible. Although Han Yuri agreed with her colleague's reasoning, she still couldn't make up her mind. Strangely, since that night, Cha Eun-gyeong's attitude towards Han Yuri had changed significantly. She involved her in every case, big or small, and even shared her expertise generously. One day, she received a case involving a 6 billion inheritance, and her first thought was to include Han Yuri. This made the assistant beside her quite jealous, as larger cases meant higher legal fees. Soon, Cha Eun-gyeong and Han Yuri met with the plaintiffs, who were old classmates. The defendants were their spouses, and the two families had a close relationship, often camping together weekly. Their children also got along very well. However, this harmony was disrupted by a handprint. Like usual, the families met for a camping trip this week, but the heater in Junhee's family car broke down, so Min-jung's husband suggested they all spend the night in their car to avoid the cold. The families squeezed into one car, but in the middle of the night, Min-jung woke up to find her husband missing. Coincidentally, Junhee's wife was also gone. She got out of the car to look for them and soon heard noises from another vehicle. As she approached, the sounds became more familiar. Suddenly, a handprint was pressed heavily against the car window. Looking through the glass, she finally saw the people inside. It was her own husband and Junhee's wife, lost in their own world. She suddenly remembered that the handprint had also appeared on her own car. Instantly, she understood everything. But what pained her more was whether to tell Junhee or not. She was in such agony. Should she let her friend suffer alongside her? Yet, keeping silent felt even worse. This thought struck a chord with Han Yuri, bringing up memories of Cha Eun-gyeong's husband and overwhelming her with discomfort again. Cha Eun-gyeong's changed attitude towards Han Yuri also caught the attention of their colleagues. It turned out that on the night she returned to the office, Cha Eun-gyeong had seen Han Yuri's resignation letter and had acted this way to keep her. The next day, Han Yuri finally mustered the courage to speak to Cha Eun-gyeong, but before she could say anything, Cha Eun-gyeong stopped her and suggested waiting until the case was over to discuss anything. Thus, Han Yuri had to drop the matter. However, the case was challenging. The defendant was a congressman's son, making his worth immeasurable. His initial demand was 2 billion, just for his child and true love. Upon hearing this, Junhee became instantly agitated, as it meant the man was not only taking his wife, but also his son. He would never agree to this. In contrast, Min-jun was calm. Seeing his wife's reaction, the husband increased his offer, promising to send the children to the best schools in South Korea. Clearly, this offer was tempting, and Min-jun was visibly shaken. However, Han Yuri was furious, feeling that this was akin to selling the children. Cha Eun-gyeong argued that Han Yuri was being naive, and that this was truly for the best for the children, as the schools were ones they could not afford otherwise. Ultimately, Min-jung chose the 2 billion offer. Angry, Han Yuri confronted her, asking if she was trading her children for money. Although her words were harsh, Min-jung, however, didn't care. She argued that her children always had the best clothes, food, and schools, luxuries she couldn't afford on her own. Cha Eun-gyeong strongly agreed with her decision. She simply gave up custody, not the right to be a mother. She can still love her children deeply. However, Han Yuri believed that by doing so, the children would feel abandoned by their mother. This statement immediately drew a reprimand from Cha Eun-gyeong, who urged her to apologize to the concerned party. Realizing her overreaction, Han Yuri quickly apologized. Soon, the mediation day arrived. Min-jung's agreement was expected, but the agreement from Junhee, who had been firmly opposed, shocked her. It turned out that Cha Eun-gyeong had played a significant role. Before the mediation, she had spoken to Junhee's son, who still wanted to live with his mother because she needed him. Although this saddened him, he chose to facilitate it. In the end, he couldn't help but cry and begged his wife to take good care of the children. He asked her not to reveal the truth, suggesting she tell them he had gone far away to earn money, and that's why they couldn't live together. He insisted that the children must not know it was the mother's fault. Seeing everyone in tears, Han Yuri's thoughts drifted to the past, recalling how her father made similar mistakes and eventually abandoned them. This made her particularly sensitive to this case. Observing Han Yuri's distress, Cha Eun-gyeong stated that this was the real victory. It seemed like the children were taken away, but in reality it was just temporary care. The mother would use the money to live a better life. and when the father was busy, the mother would naturally care for the children. Over time, the children would naturally choose their mother. But Han Yuri still worried about the custody rights. Cha Eun-gyeong dismissed these concerns as trivial. If the children insisted on living with their mother, the court couldn't intervene. This realization struck Han Yuri. Understanding that not only did this strategy secure financial stability for the mother, it also allowed her to discreetly bring the children back. Cha Eun-gyeong's words significantly elevated her status in Han Yuri's eyes. Subsequently, she took Han Yuri directly to a luxury store. Because she remembered Han Yuri was once humiliated over a bag, she hesitated to tell her the truth while holding it. Just then, Cha Eun-gyeong's assistant caught her attention, specifically her skirt, which was the same as that worn by a woman that night. She immediately went to the surveillance room and accessed the footage under Cha Eun-gyeong's name, confirming the woman was indeed Cha Eun-gyeong's assistant. After much thought, she finally called Cha Eun-gyeong, but to her surprise, Cha Eun-gyeong was unusually calm upon hearing the truth. She not only knew about her husband's affair, but also that the other woman was Choi Sara. The wife had inadvertently seen a package on her husband's desk, revealing a shocking secret. It contained intimate photos of her husband with his secretary. Despite discovering her husband's disgraceful behavior, Cha Eun-gyeong couldn't easily file for divorce as it would affect her reputation as a renowned lawyer. She had suspected her husband for a long time. During a dinner with colleagues, Kim Ji-sang flirted openly with Choi Sara, and they both left under the pretense of buying beer. Furthermore, while Kim Ji-sang was driving Cha Eun-gyeong to work, a voice message suddenly played. Curious, Cha Eun-gyeong opened it, causing Kim Ji-sang to lose his temper, freezing the atmosphere in the car. He awkwardly explained it was their dean. But when Cha Eun-gyeong saw the dean's surname was Choi and checked her husband's hospital list, there was no dean with that surname. She realized that this so-called Dean Choi might be her secretary. Han Yuri urged Cha Eun-gyeong not to let the couple off easily and suggested filing for divorce. However, Cha Eun-gyeong said that divorce wasn't a simple solution. One was her secretary who had helped her for 10 years, and the other was her husband who had cared for their children for 13 years. Letting them go would be a significant loss for her, no matter how Han Yuri condemned their immoral actions. Cha Eun-gyeong remained unmoved because she had become disillusioned. She had carefully prepared for their wedding anniversary, but Kim Ji-sang arrived very late, choosing to have dinner with Choi Sara first, even on their special day. When Kim Ji-sang was about to leave, Choi Sara was slightly angry and disappointed. Kim Ji-sang comforted her, saying he would discuss divorce with Cha Eun-gyeong upon returning. He showed no interest in the anniversary preparations and questioned Cha Eun-gyeong about how she planned to handle the divorce. He claimed that he only came because Cha Eun-gyeong had been delaying their discussion. Kim Ji-sang was determined to divorce because he felt that Cha Eun-gyeong was always focused on work and neglected their family and daughter. He now just wanted Cha Eun-gyeong to agree to the divorce. Their conversation reached a stalemate again, and just before leaving, Cha Eun-gyeong asked what she could do to change his mind, wondering if quitting her job and staying at home would suffice. Kim Ji-sang remained unmoved and left. At top law firms, divorce consultations are limited to 5 sessions, and often the 5th consultation is handled by a junior lawyer. This is a subtle way of indicating a refusal to take the case seriously. However, the new lawyer Han Yuri likes to challenge conventions. She softened when faced with a woman who was often beaten by her drunk husband, despite the woman's reluctance to divorce. The woman explained that her husband was better when sober and did not want her upcoming daughter's wedding to be affected by a divorce, or for her daughter to walk down the aisle without her father. But most importantly, she felt she was too old to consider divorce. She didn't want the label of a divorced woman. Han Yuri told her that no one cares about that anymore, and she shouldn't suffer in silence for another 30 years because of others who don't understand her struggles. The woman argued that her husband wouldn't even be able to cook for himself if they divorced. He'd either starve or get sick from only eating instant noodles. Eventually, Han Yuri convinced her that after the divorce, she could get half of their assets and wouldn't have to deal with someone who cursed and ignored her every day. Thinking about it made her feel relieved. Coupled with her daughter's persistent persuasion to lead her own life free from her father's troubles, the woman finally signed the divorce papers during her last consultation. However, when Han Yuri was still excited, thinking that, although divorce is a personal decision, it sometimes needs guidance like hers, Cha Eun-gyeong threw cold water on her enthusiasm. She said the woman signed quickly because it was her last consultation, and she feared facing future hardships alone. Han Yuri directly countered by saying that no one decides to divorce just because of a company policy. Cha Eun-gyeong expressed her frustration with Han Yuri's repeated acts of righteousness. She told Han Yuri that although there's no limit on who can divorce, not everyone is capable of handling it. Like the woman, even if she received a fortune, she might be too timid to live on her own. Han Yuri challenged her, asking if Cha Eun-gyeong felt the same about her own marriage. Cha Eun-gyeong had made her decision, so she hinted subtly at Han Yuri, hoping she would understand, but Han Yuri, being particularly stubborn, believed that any marital issue should lead to immediate divorce. Regardless of whether it's her client or Cha Eun-gyeong, both should act accordingly. So, when her colleagues thought she was being contrary and asked if she had retained her rebellious attitude from childhood, she firmly denied it, claiming she was just following her lawyer's conscience. Then a colleague commented how hard she lives, to which she retorted that it should be Cha Eun-gyeong who really has it tough. As a divorce lawyer whose husband cheated without her planning to divorce, she's just afraid of public scrutiny and feels no shame. Her colleagues guessed it might be because of the children. Cha Eun-gyeong herself said that women quickly sign the divorce papers because they fear having nowhere to vent. So when the woman was abused again, she went back to Han Yuri to complain. After venting, she started worrying about her husband becoming lonely without her. Han Yuri had to patiently persuade her again, finally getting the woman to agree to move out and cut off direct contact with her husband. All communication would go through her. As expected, the husband called Han Yuri, angrily berating her. He said all his friends were the same. He had already bought a gift and apologized to his wife, and threatened that if the woman didn't return, he would never let her go. Seeing Han Yuri unmoved and refusing to let the woman return, the man made a final threat. If Han Yuri didn't back off, he would kill himself. However, this threat didn't affect Han Yuri, but it did impact the woman. That evening, she packed her things to return home, saying her husband was different this time and had begged for her forgiveness while drunk. She decided to trust him and wanted to go back to make him a sobering soup. But the next day, as Han Yuri was preparing for work, she received a rushed phone call from the woman and hurried to the hospital. The man was still in surgery, and unsurprisingly, the woman blamed her. At this point, Han Yuri thought to seek help from Cha Eun-gyeong. However, given the situation, Cha Eun-gyeong could only advise her to wait and see. If the defendant died, the case could potentially shift to a matter of inheritance. If not, they could simply drop the charges as per the client's wishes. Cha Eun-gyeong also reassured her that it's common for people to attempt suicide after receiving a lawsuit, and that she shouldn't feel guilty. She reminded Han Yuri not to use insignificant missions or trivial senses of justice to persuade indecisive clients to divorce. From a previous case, Cha Eun-gyeong had told her that they are just lawyers and cannot make decisions for their clients. She suggested that Han Yuri should separate her personal identity from her professional one, avoiding expressing personal opinions as lawyer Han Yuri and not making decisions from her own perspective. Consider the client's desire to punish her husband as the starting point. So, when the husband woke up and the woman, as Cha Eun-gyeong predicted, requested to drop the lawsuit, claiming she had no right to even consider divorce, Han Yuri was at a loss for words and could only hope the woman's husband would change. However, at this moment, Cha Eun-gyeong, who had always advised her to drop this client, appeared. She told the woman that things would only repeat over time and not to hope for any change in her husband after this incident. If the woman made a firm decision later, they would not limit the number of consultations, or they might consider couples counseling, or she could refer them to alcohol addiction counseling. She assured them that she was always available for any issues, and paying the consultation fee all at once would even get them a discount. This bold move left Han Yuri stunned. She couldn't understand why Cha Eun-gyeong, who had previously told her to dismiss the woman, was now promoting counseling services. Cha Eun-gyeong explained that once a suicide attempt occurs, such incidents tend to repeat until the person has a sudden realization. This only confused Han Yuri further. She no longer understood what marriage really meant. After much thought, Han Yuri decided to leave the department, as she couldn't find any meaning or value in her work there. Before leaving, she told Cha Eun-gyeong that she often saw Kim Ji-sang at Choi Sara's house and suspected they were living together. She left her home address on Cha Eun-gyeong's desk. Driven by some impulse, Cha Eun-gyeong visited Han Yuri's apartment and unexpectedly saw Kim Ji-sung and Choi Sara in an intimate act. They then went grocery shopping together. Watching this, Cha Eun-gyeong was reminded of happy family memories, perhaps touching a deep-seated pain. The long-suppressed resentment exploded at that moment. Just as Han Yuri was packing to leave, Cha Eun-gyeong, in a rush, found her, refusing to accept her resignation, and handed her a lawsuit file, entrusting her divorce case to Han Yuri. The file contained evidence of her husband's infidelity. Entrusting her divorce case to Han Yuri. The file contained evidence of her husband's infidelity. Han Yuri was confused. Had Cha Eun-gyeong been preparing for divorce all along? Cha Eun-gyeong admitted that collecting evidence was easy for her, given her profession. In fact, she had been trying to prevent the divorce because South Korean law prevents a guilty spouse from filing for divorce. However, after witnessing her husband's affectionate behavior with his secretary, her determination to protect her family vanished instantly. Cha Eun-gyeong choked up discussing this and hoped Han Yuri would help her stage the most perfect divorce show. The action would continue the next morning. The secretary received a court summons, accusing her of misconduct with a married man. At that moment, Cha Eun-gyeong arrived at the law firm. Pretending to be respectful, the secretary stood up, but Cha Eun-gyeong immediately asked her to come to the office. Choi Sara, worried about losing face, tried to close the curtains as soon as she entered, but Cha Eun-gyeong stopped her. A confrontation was imminent. An agitated Choi Sara warned Cha Eun-gyeong that she and her husband were practically strangers, sometimes even less than strangers. Hearing this, Cha Eun-gyeong almost laughed, surprised that Choi Sara's excuses matched her husband's exactly. Although she had the upper hand verbally, Cha Eun-gyeong felt heart-wrenching pain inside. Meanwhile, Kim Ji-sung also received a summons and was shocked and angry that his wife had prepared in advance. He immediately called Cha Eun-gyeong, asking when she knew about this. Exposing his true character, he accused her of constantly monitoring him and loudly expressed his relief at deciding to leave. Holding back tears, Cha Eun-gyeong told him to contact her lawyer in the future. However, Kim Ji-sung slandered her, falsely claiming she had started a relationship with Jung Woo-jin even before their divorce. At that moment, a mix of feelings, sadness, unwillingness, and anger flooded Cha Eun-gyeong. She never imagined that the person she once loved deeply would betray her as their marriage ended. She realized her commitment had been one-sided. In the afternoon, Han Yuri came to the office, puzzled as to why she was chosen to handle the case. Cha Eun-gyeong was honest with her, stating she didn't actually need a lawyer because she was skilled herself. She merely wanted a balance. Before Han Yuri could fully understand, Cha Eun-gyeong urged her to immediately attend to a case involving a CEO in the VIP room. Mrs. Park, the wife of Boss Park, filed for divorce and sought half of the company's shares. The couple had been living apart for many years, and although married for 23 years, they had not lived together for the last 10. According to the law, the wife is entitled to half the shares as they are still legally married. However, Cha Eun-gyeong argued that the company went public only after their relationship had deteriorated, meaning it should not be considered marital property and thus not subject to division. The challenge lies in proving this point. On the other side, Kim Ji-sung and Choi Sara hired a top lawyer from the first law firm to handle their divorce case against Cha Eun-gyeong. The lawyer, upon reviewing the complaint, shook his head at the completeness of the evidence chain. Kim Ji-sung claimed that he had been the sole caregiver for their child, who preferred his company over their mother's, suggesting that the family dynamics were not normal. At this point, Kim Ji-sung requested custody of the child, shocking Choi Sara, who was either unaware or unwilling to care for Cha Eun-gyeong's child. A day later, Boss Park's case went to court. Cha Eun-gyeong argued that the couple was not merely separated, but were living separate lives, similar to strangers with no interactions, and thus had independent economic lives. The wife countered in court, claiming they were still very much in love, a sentiment envied by those who knew them. Cha Eun-gyeong highlighted that 3 months prior, the defendant's company's stock price had increased tenfold. She alleged that the plaintiff prolonged the marriage to ensure this asset was included as marital property, deeming the claim to be false. The plaintiff's lawyer questioned why, if they were living separate lives, the defendant continued to provide financial support. The amount in question is not insignificant, and immigration records show that up until 2 years ago, the defendant traveled back and forth 2 to 3 times annually. The judge also believed these needed to be proven. Thus, Cha Eun-gyeong famously stated that she would respond before the next hearing. After the court session, Cha Eun-gyeong requested a 3-week postponement of the court and reminded that Han Yuri, Boss Park's second daughter, was about to come of age, realizing the low credibility of a minor's testimony. The next day, Han Yuri woke up groggy to find a man lying next to her. Amid the uproar caused by Cha Eun-gyeong's pending divorce, the law firm's chairman, Bai Taegwi, demanded an explanation in anger. At that moment, Attorney Shu approached the two, first comforting Cha Eun-gyeong and then advising Bai Taegwi to calm down as others were watching and the rumors might not be true. Eventually, under Shu's persuasion, Bai Taegwi left the law firm angrily, showing that his relationship with Cha Eun-gyeong was more complex than just classmates. After Bai Taegwi left, Jung Woo-jin came to Cha Eun-gyeong's office, complaining about not being informed about the divorce and having to hear it through rumors. He then shifted the conversation to offer his help, but Cha Eun-gyeong, remembering what Kim Ji-sang had said about opportunism, promptly refused Jung Woo-jin's offer. That afternoon, Kim Ji-sang met with Cha Eun-gyeong, seeking a private settlement. Seeing his wife unmoved, he brought up their daughter, accusing Cha Eun-gyeong of selfishness and not considering the child, unaware that Cha Eun-gyeong detested using their child as leverage. Is that really considering the child's best interests? She made Kim Ji-sang understand clearly that he should never mention their daughter again, and that there would be no out-of-court settlement. However, as one issue settled, another arose. Boss Park's wife stormed into the law office demanding to see the senior attorney. As soon as she sat down, Cha Eun-gyeong guessed her intentions. She merely wanted 30% of the shares, as if it were a significant concession. Cha Eun-gyeong made it clear, not even 1%, let alone 30%, would be given. The wife, shifting her gaze, criticized Boss Park for only knowing how to make money and not being fit to be a father. Yet, the money would eventually be inherited by the children. Cha Eun-gyeong believed the wife only wanted a divorce for the money, ignoring the contradiction of her motives. Does such a person deserve to be a mother? Worried about his anger affecting their daughters, Boss Park considered giving his wife 50% of the shares to settle the marital disputes. Cha Eun-gyeong reminded him that as long as the wife could use the children as leverage, he would always give in. Do you want to be blackmailed by a wife who uses children as bargaining chips for the rest of your life? At this point, she recalled Kim Ji-sang, who also used their child as leverage. Han Yuri, observing Cha Eun-gyeong's silence, kept encouraging Boss Park. Hearing this, he sighed, mentioning that tomorrow would be his younger daughter's birthday, and it was shameful for her to see her parents like this. Time passed quickly, and the second court session began. Han Yuri submitted their younger daughter's statement as evidence. The statement read, "I am Park Yarin, the youngest daughter of the plaintiff and the defendant. My parents love us in their own ways. The year I was born, my father named the company after me. Over the past 20 years, he worked hard to grow it significantly, while Mom moved to another place and personally took care of and taught us. 5 years ago, in front of us, they said they would continue living as parents but not as a couple, starting their own lives separately." Upon hearing this, the wife immediately stood up, hoping the judge would not listen to a child's words, especially since the youngest daughter was still a minor. Cha Eun-gyeong quickly pointed out that at the time the statement was written, she was already an adult. Ultimately, Boss Park won the divorce case. Afterward, Cha Eun-gyeong, as if advising herself, told him, "If someone uses children as a threat again, please do not be swayed." That evening, Cha Eun-gyeong invited Han Yuri to a victory dinner. During the meal, Han Yuri mentioned that Choi Sara wanted to settle. What should be done? Cha Eun-gyeong declared she would never settle. She wanted revenge. She intended to leave Kim Ji-sang penniless and out of his house. However, the next day, Han Yuri brought out a scandalous report. It claimed the marriage fell apart due to Cha Eun-gyeong's affair. Coincidentally, Han Yuri had seen Cha Eun-gyeong with Jung Woo-jin in the office. So, who should we believe? She didn't realize the extent of someone's shamelessness until Kim Ji-sang's infidelity was exposed. The exclusive news reported that Cha Eun-gyeong had a partner at work. Suddenly, everyone was saying she and her husband were actually the same. Through several encounters, Kim Ji-sang and Choi Sara realized that Cha Eun-gyeong was not willing to settle the divorce simply, especially as Kim Ji-sang felt their chances of winning were slim. Although Han Yuri was a new lawyer, Cha Eun-gyeong had the experienced lawyer Jung Woo-jin strategizing behind her. The mention of Jung Woo-jin prompted the secretary to think of some strategies. Working together for over 10 years, the secretary knew Jung Woo-jin's feelings for Cha Eun-gyeong well. The secretary claimed that she and Jung Woo-jin had been secretly involved, often traveling together on business trips without anyone else. Initially, Kim Ji-sung believed Cha Eun-gyeong would not engage in such behavior. Given his knowledge of his wife, who barely spared time to eat, how could she have time for an affair? However, the secretary countered that after working together for more than 10 years, it was impossible that nothing had happened, possibly even starting before them. As the court date approached, Choi Sa-ra refused to sit idly by. Under her persuasion, Kim Ji-sang met with a reporter alone and exaggerated the situation between Cha Eun-gyeong and Jung Woo-jin, even claiming that they hadn't been intimate for 3 years, suggesting that the problem might have started then. Meanwhile, the secretary phoned the lawyer with a tone that brooked no refusal, demanding he immediately draft a counterclaim to convince the public that the fault was not solely Cha Eun-gyeong's. Both parties were at fault. As a public figure, Cha Eun-gyeong's marriage was once envied by many. However, following a journalist's exposé, she quickly became a target of public attacks. She apologized to Jung Woo-jin, stating that he would not have been involved if not for her. Despite appearing calm, Cha Eun-gyeong was internally distressed, to the extent that she broke a glass while pouring water. As Jung Woo-jin and she picked up the shards, Cha Eun-gyeong accidentally cut her finger. While they were examining the wound, Han Yuri rushed in. The position they were in almost made Han Yuri believe the reports in the news. Han Yuri was there to deliver a counterclaim and officially began discussing the case with Cha Eun-gyeong in her capacity as the attorney for the plaintiff. Han Yuri was merely seeking reassurance, thinking that the other party might have some evidence. Cha Eun-gyeong dismissed her concerns outright, stating that such issues were not even worth responding to. She reminded Han Yuri that, as the plaintiff's lawyer, she should start looking for countermeasures. Han Yuri was taught a lesson by Cha Eun-gyeong and reluctantly began to figure out what to do next. At this time, Jung Woo-jin approached Han Yuri to talk about his relationship with Cha Eun-gyeong. He had watched Cha Eun-gyeong grow from an unknown junior to a star lawyer, witnessing her efforts and resilience. They often had meals and worked late together. Although Jung Woo-jin always regarded Cha Eun-gyeong with admiration, it wasn't until he saw her wedding photo with another man that he felt utterly lost, even questioning if they got along well. Although Jung Woo-jin never directly mentioned his feelings for Cha Eun-gyeong, his words were filled with love. Han Yuri was well aware of this and reminded Jung Woo-jin that he must never let others discover his feelings for Cha Eun-gyeong. Due to Cha Eun-gyeong's lawsuit, the hospital director expelled Kim Ji-sung, leaving him alone, staring blankly in the hallway. The deepest pain of divorce is always felt by the children. Cha Eun-gyeong wanted to explain the current situation to her daughter, but her daughter always made excuses not to listen. Cha Eun-gyeong thought her daughter was unaware of the home situation, not knowing she already knew about the divorce. Compared to the somber atmosphere at home, Kim Ji-sung and Choi Sa-ra were thriving. Choi Sa-ra was pleased because it was the first time she heard Kim Ji-sung speaking ill of Cha Eun-gyeong. Since things had come to this, Choi Sa-ra decided to confront the situation boldly. She planned to talk again with Han Yuri, thinking that Han Yuri now knew they were not to be trifled with and might abandon her previous uncompromising stance. The next day, Han Yuri met with her secretary. Choi Sa-ra proposed a settlement once more with a firm attitude, claiming that as a public figure, Cha Eun-gyeong must be suffering more negative impacts than anyone else. She didn't care because one was a seasoned lawyer with over a decade in the field, and the other was a newcomer to the profession. How would Han Yuri choose? If she opposed the settlement, how could she prevail? Han Yuri reported her meeting with Choi Sa-ra to Cha Eun-gyeong and tried to persuade her to consider settling. Han Yuri believed that Cha Eun-gyeong was now blinded by a desire for revenge. If she persisted in not settling, she would not only face division of property, but could also ruin her reputation and even affect her child. Cha Eun-gyeong understood Han Yuri's concerns and knew that as a newcomer, she might be somewhat timid. Even so, Cha Eun-gyeong still maintained her stance, insisting that Han Yuri must devise a response plan. Cha Eun-gyeong is known for being tough on the outside, but soft on the inside, and she feared her attitude might hurt Han Yuri. She secretly monitored Han Yuri's situation. Jung Woo-jin admired Han Yuri's boldness in speaking the truth, preferring her straightforward approach over those who only follow orders. Rumors about Cha Eun-gyeong and Jung Woo-jin persisted in the headlines, with some calling Jung Woo-jin a fool for still being associated with Cha Eun-gyeong daily. Jung Woo-jin maintained that he had never crossed the line of friendship and had done nothing reprehensible. Despite being a talented individual at the company, the executive viewed Cha Eun-gyeong as a problematic woman for men. The executive might be Jung Woo-jin's father, which explained his disdain for Cha Eun-gyeong, not wanting his son to waste time on a married woman. After a night of thought, Han Yuri finally came up with a countermeasure, planning to strike back under the pretense of bigamy. She reasoned that if the other couple could slander Cha Eun-gyeong and stir up controversy over work relationships, they could retaliate in kind. While terms like adultery and infidelity might create a temporary stir, but are soon forgotten, the term bigamy would certainly pique public curiosity. Han Yuri contacted the journalist who had published the news about the work couple, as only an article from him could stop the attacks on Cha Eun-gyeong. She leaked a bit of evidence about Kim Ji-sung's actual bigamy. Today was both the court date and the day of retaliation. Cha Eun-gyeong instructed her daughter to wait obediently at the tutoring center until she finished and could pick her up. Soon, the news about the factual bigamy was published by a journalist, and public opinion immediately shifted. Cha Eun-gyeong warned Han Yuri to be ready from now on, as her divorce was not just any divorce, but a public spectacle. At the courthouse entrance, Han Yuri, as Cha Eun-gyeong's spokesperson, confirmed the news to reporters. Kim Ji-sung, who was accused of infidelity, went to court with Cha Eun-gyeong over custody rights. As Cha Eun-gyeong's lawyer, Han Yuri told the judge the daughter should be with her mother. However, Kim Ji-sung's lawyer argued that Cha Eun-gyeong was unfit as a mother, claiming Kim Ji-sung spent more time with the child and was closer. Cha Eun-gyeong could not refute this, but she argued that Kim Ji-sung's affair involved a person known to the case. Granting custody to Kim Ji-sung would mean her subordinate, the other woman, Choi Sa-ra, would raise her daughter. Cha Eun-gyeong was overwhelmed and could no longer speak. Since both parties could not agree on custody, the judge had to start a family investigation. Cha Eun-gyeong's troubles were not yet over. As she left the court, she met a woman who claimed to be her fan. The woman, seeing Cha Eun-gyeong as a lifeline, pleaded for her help with her own custody issues. Considering their similar situations, Cha Eun-gyeong immediately instructed Han Yuri to take her case. She thought the woman wanted custody, but unexpectedly, both she and her husband wanted to give it up. Just as Cha Eun-gyeong returned to the law firm, she received a call from teacher Kim Jae-hee. The teacher reported that Kim Jae-hee had disappeared after class. Before the teacher could finish, Cha Eun-gyeong turned and rushed to the school. After learning about the incident, Kim Ji-sun scolded Cha Eun-gyeong, accusing her of failing to take care of their child. Cha Eun-gyeong, with no time for Kim Ji-sun's nonsense, rushed to the school in search of Kim Jae-hee. She checked every classroom but could not find her. Suddenly, Choi Sa-ra sent a text with a picture of Kim Jae-hee. Cha Eun-gyeong confronted Choi Sa-ra angrily, demanding Kim Jae-hee to step out and wait for her, then warned Choi Sa-ra that she would not let her off. Cha Eun-gyeong wanted to know from her daughter why she was with Choi Sa-ra. Kim Jae-hee explained that Choi Sa-ra had been asking to meet for a few days. Before Cha Eun-gyeong could respond, Kim Jae-hee bluntly stated that Choi Sa-ra was her father's mistress. Cha Eun-gyeong wanted to deny it, but Kim Jae-hee, no longer a child, asked whom she should live with. Cha Eun-gyeong responded that she would stay at home and visit her father on weekends. Meanwhile, at the law firm, Han Yuri was questioning her new client, a mother who complained that her husband often left their children outside, neglected them, and was an alcoholic. Hearing this, Han Yuri was puzzled why the mother would still entrust her children to such a father. The mother expressed she did not want to be responsible for the children forever and begged Han Yuri for help to escape this hell. Han Yuri relayed the story to Cha Eun-gyeong, who sighed and remarked that more people like this would emerge as living costs and housing prices soared. Raising a child was becoming increasingly difficult. Cha Eun-gyeong advised Han Yuri not to get emotionally involved and to act according to the client's wishes. Just give the father custody of the child. Cha Eun-gyeong decided not to pursue the matter further but reflected that her husband was serious. She had thought Kim Ji-sung's desire for custody was just talk. As a professional divorce lawyer, Cha Eun-gyeong knew she was at a disadvantage regarding custody. She had always been a workaholic, spending very little time with Kim Jae-hee, while her husband took care of their daughter most of the time. She had no confidence that Kim Jae-hee would choose her. Meanwhile, ever since Cha Eun-gyeong exposed Kim Ji-sung's affair, Choi Sa-ra felt uneasy. Colleagues were speculating about who the other woman was, causing Choi Sa-ra embarrassment. One senior colleague had guessed it was Choi Sa-ra, making indirect comments that Choi Sa-ra couldn't bear, leading her to leave a meal unfinished. She went to Cha Eun-gyeong's office to drop off some documents and saw the computer unlocked. Choi Sa-ra checked the performance evaluation form and saw she scored perfectly, which led her to fantasize about her future career, even sitting in Cha Eun-gyeong's chair as if it were hers already. Caught off guard by Cha Eun-gyeong's sudden return, she was at a loss for words. However, Cha Eun-gyeong was relaxed and asked if the chair was comfortable. Alone together, Cha Eun-gyeong questioned Choi Sa-ra's real intentions towards finding Kim Jae-hee. At that moment, Cha Eun-gyeong realized that Choi Sa-ra was not helping Kim Ji-sung gain custody, but had secretly told Choi Sa-ra to stay with her mother. Seeing themselves on the same side, Choi Sa-ra made a request. Choi Sa-ra wanted to reconcile with Cha Eun-gyeong. She couldn't stand colleagues talking about her, either to her face or behind her back. Cha Eun-gyeong asked if it was because of the promotion review, wondering if Choi Sa-ra was backing off because she was worried about being discovered. On the other side, Han Yuri, acting as the plaintiff's attorney, attended the hearing, but the defendant suddenly disagreed with the divorce, catching Han Yuri off guard. The woman wanted a divorce, so Han Yuri told the judge she would gather evidence of the husband's alcohol abuse before the next court appearance. After learning of this, Cha Eun-gyeong bluntly told Han Yuri that she was still too naive. If Han Yuri found evidence of alcohol abuse, the judge would deem the husband unfit for child custody, playing right into his scheme of not wanting the child. They called the mother, and Cha Eun-gyeong told her that given the current situation, their chances of obtaining custody were 99%. She suggested that the mother should be straightforward, prove the grounds for divorce the husband, secure alimony, and then raise the child herself. The woman wasn't against raising her child. She just felt overwhelmed by exhaustion and financial pressures. The woman's words made Cha Eun-gyeong think of herself. Her husband was upset that she only cared about work, hardly seeing him once a day, hardly deserving the title of mother. The next day, Cha Eun-gyeong's husband unexpectedly went to Kim Jae-hee's school and took her out on leave for the day. Unbeknownst to Cha Eun-gyeong, he had secured a room following the lawyer's advice to strengthen his custody claim, telling Kim Jae-hee they would live there in the future. If Cha Eun-gyeong knew about this, she didn't know how to respond. Cha Eun-gyeong bought the wrong style of underwear for her 13-year-old daughter for the first time, showing her negligence as a mother. For 13 years, she was unaware of her daughter's preferences and never self-reflected. Kim Jae-hee ruthlessly told Cha Eun-gyeong to leave, saying, "You've always been busy. Go take care of your business, just like always." Cha Eun-gyeong did not realize why Kim Jae-hee was angry, but asked her if she wanted to live with her father, showing such an attitude. Kim Jae-hee felt that her mother did not want her. Cha Eun-gyeong thought someone had influenced her. However, Kim Jae-hee simply asked for more time to think. Cha Eun-gyeong desperately wanted custody of Kim Jae-hee, but didn't realize she was going about it the wrong way. She naively thought that buying Kim Jae-hee a random gift could heal the wounds in her daughter's heart. All Kim Jae-hee wanted was simple: her parents' companionship. She cried silently under her blankets, unknown to anyone. The next day, Han Yuri approached Kim Jae-hee. Although Han Yuri did not state her purpose, Kim Jae-hee thought she was there to persuade her to live with her mother. Kim Jae-hee, usually accompanied by a nanny, was more mature than other kids her age. Han Yuri disagreed with Kim Jae-hee's assumption and told her that whether she lived with her mother or father, the important thing was her happiness. The choice was Kim Jae-hee's freedom. Given the parents' reluctance to care for their child, Cha Eun-gyeong's years of experience told her she could not win legally. Therefore, she decided to lead the next court appearance. Han Yuri learned from the following incident. Only the husband attended this court session. The wife did not appear. The husband angrily told the judge that his wife was unfit to be a mother. However, Cha Eun-gyeong explained that the wife could not attend due to a car accident. It turned out that on the night they discussed the divorce settlement and child support, the wife had not agreed. So, Cha Eun-gyeong devised a plan. She had the wife simulate a minor accident and text her husband about it to pick up their child, claiming post-accident symptoms prevented her from attending court. Additionally, Cha Eun-gyeong pointed out that the wife's financial inability to care for the child post-divorce was due to her having not worked for 10 years because of child rearing. Cha Eun-gyeong presented all this information to show the judge that the wife was not in a position to care for the child. However, the husband's lawyer argued that these were merely tactics to avoid custody responsibilities. Cha Eun-gyeong also discovered that the husband's parents were educators, giving him an advantage in child rearing. Han Yuri was thoroughly impressed by Cha Eun-gyeong's tactics and finally understood why she had been asked to gather information on the husband's parents. The judge, seeing their continuous arguing, ended the session and notified them of an upcoming mediation. Elsewhere, Kim Jae-hee was left alone in the rain as school ended. Other children were picked up by their parents, but she stood alone. Both Cha Eun-gyeong and her father texted her expressing their love, yet neither came to pick her up. That evening, Han Yuri received an invitation from the plaintiff and met her at a restaurant. The woman said the last time she had barbecue was 5 years ago because she had devoted all her energy to her children. She had no siblings and her parents lived far away, so she had no one to help her. Han Yuri sympathized with her, but still hoped the woman would consider keeping the children with her. The woman questioned whether simply being nearby was enough for the children to grow up well, arguing that if the father wasn't earning money, at least she should. In the presence of a mediator, Cha Eun-gyeong proposed a settlement. The children's custody would go to the father, who would take care of them from Monday to Friday, with the mother caring for them on weekends. Cha Eun-gyeong also emphasized that care could start Friday night, so he could have time to drink freely. She tactfully pressed the father's weak spot, and he agreed without much hesitation. On the way back, Han Yuri reflected on how some people would agree to a divorce just to be able to drink. It was then that Cha Eun-gyeong explained that his agreement wasn't just about drinking. It was because he could somewhat be a competent father during the period he was with the children. That evening, while dining with Cha Eun-gyeong, Kim Jae-hee suddenly took out her phone and showed Cha Eun-gyeong the room her father had prepared for her. Meanwhile, the job promotion results were finally out, and Choi Sa-ra was promoted to chief room manager as she had dreamed since joining the company, now with her own office. Sitting in her office chair, she envisioned her future life and shared her joy with Kim Ji-sung, thinking her happy life was about to begin, unaware that her nightmare was just starting. Choi Sa-ra had just been promoted to chief room manager and was proudly enjoying her success in her new office when Cha Eun-gyeong suddenly informed her that she was being fired for violating company policies. Unable to accept this, Choi Sa-ra immediately sought confirmation from Young Woo-jin. Although they had worked together for over 10 years, Jung Woo-jin had grown discontent with her and bluntly told her that it was a unanimous decision by the company's senior management. Choi Sa-ra was completely taken aback and threatened to report the company for wrongful dismissal. Jung Woo-jin responded indifferently, allowing her to proceed as she wished. In response, Choi Sa-ra openly confronted him, stating that his feelings for Cha Eun-gyeong were no different from hers. Hearing this, Young Woo-jin stepped forward and remarked that Cha Eun-gyeong and Kim Jae-hee were unlucky to have to deal with someone like her, and said she should spend her life facing them like a criminal. Caught between a rock and a hard place, Choi Sa-ra was unaware that Jung Woo-jin himself had made the decision to fire her. Initially, Cha Eun-gyeong was not so firm about the dismissal, but Jung Woo-jin believed that keeping such a person would be a disgrace to the company. Moreover, Jung Woo-jin, representing the nephew of the law firm, found it unacceptable that Choi Sa-ra dared to spread rumors that she and Cha Eun-gyeong were work partners. For the first time, Choi Sa-ra experienced the feeling of falling from heaven to hell. Amid the mockery of her colleagues, she eventually broke down and cried on the floor. As the trouble with Choi Sa-ra ended, another trouble arose. This person was the one involved in Han Yuri's father's affair, which had led to her parents' divorce, orchestrated by Cha Eun-gyeong, who was Han Yuri's father's lawyer at the time. This person now approached Cha Eun-gyeong. The mistress presented Han Yuri's father's will, which stated that all his assets were to be given to her. Cha Eun-gyeong glanced at it and immediately declared the will legally invalid. However, the mistress ignored this, claiming that Han Yuri's mother had once promised her everything and now pretended to be unaware. She suspected Han Yuri of interfering, disparaged her as worthless, accused her of causing trouble at the company, resulting in her losing a high-paying job and being labeled as a mistress. She even suggested that Cha Eun-gyeong should distance herself from Han Yuri and fire her immediately. Cha Eun-gyeong, clearly uninterested, dismissed her outright. Later, without Han Yuri's knowledge, Cha Eun-gyeong approached her mother, learning that the mistress had already extorted 300 million won. Han Yuri's mother knew the will had no legal standing but complied with the mistress's demand for money to prevent her from causing a scene at Han Yuri's company. Meanwhile, Choi Sa-ra told Cha Eun-gyeong's husband that they could now be together 24/7. Kim Ji-sung did not engage in the conversation and warned Choi Sa-ra not to mention their relationship in front of Kim Jae-hee, as Cha Eun-gyeong had told their daughter that Kim Ji-sung and Choi Sa-ra were just friends. Choi Sa-ra, skeptical of Cha Eun-gyeong's kindness, believed that she would do anything to secure custody, including disparaging others. Then, Choi Sa-ra questioned her husband about what he and Kim Jae-hee had been doing, only to discover that the man she liked had already found a new place to live without her knowledge. When Choi Sa-ra asked when she could move in, Kim Ji-sung told her she couldn't go there. Choi Sa-ra, unwilling to give up, bought a vanity table planning to move in, thinking this would fulfill her wishes. However, Kim Ji-sung returned the item and sent the workers away, explaining that a home investigation was about to start for a custody case. The court would inspect the living environment, and finding women's items could disadvantage him. Choi Sa-ra argued that a vanity table wouldn't raise concerns in court, but Kim Ji-sung accused her of playing word games and expressed his frustration. Choi Sa-ra, realizing her argument was weak, then asked if she could move in after the court decision. Seeing Kim Ji-sung's expression, she realized he had no intention of letting her move in. It turned out Kim Ji-sung had no desire to remarry and saw their relationship as merely romantic. Kim Ji-sung made it clear about their relationship status, overwhelming Choi Sa-ra. She had thought that removing Cha Eun-gyeong from the picture would lead them to marriage. Kim Ji-sung, having just experienced a failed marriage, was not ready to marry again. But Choi Sa-ra, having found love, simply wanted happiness. The mistress visited Han Yuri's home again. Despite having received 300 million won, she was not satisfied and even demanded that Han Yuri's mother vacate the house. She argued that Han Yuri, now a lawyer, would surely be able to afford a bigger house in the future, so her mother should not be stubborn, or else she would cause a scene at Han Yuri's company. The mistress thought her threats would make Han Yuri's mother yield, but this time, she decided not to compromise and held on to some recorded files. She actively sought out Cha Eun-gyeong for help. Since losing a lawsuit, Han Yuri's mother developed the habit of recording conversations. This time, she and Cha Eun-gyeong made peace. As Han Yuri's mother was about to leave, Cha Eun-gyeong suddenly asked if the anger towards Han Yuri's father would fade over time. Han Yuri's mother understood her intent and responded that their situations were different. After all, Han Yuri's father had passed away, leaving no one to hate. She might be without a husband, but Han Yuri couldn't be without a father. Fearing that viewing her child's father as a traitor would mean losing him forever, she had suppressed her feelings for years and told Han Yuri she had forgiven her father. Inspired by this, Cha Eun-gyeong began to take greater care of Kim Jae-hee, who felt his mother's change and became more cheerful. Cha Eun-gyeong started making breakfast for Kim Jae-hee, even mimicking his father's recipe, and praised his cooking skills in front of him. At the company, Cha Eun-gyeong found the mistress already waiting for her, aware of her intention to help Han Yuri's mother. The mistress threatened her not to push herself into doing something drastic. However, Cha Eun-gyeong, accustomed to such situations, brought up the 300 million won. This money, originally Han Yuri's dowry, was unknown to Han Yuri to have been lost. If Han Yuri found out, she would likely pursue both criminal and civil actions to recover the money. Cha Eun-gyeong's words subdued the mistress's arrogance. At that moment, Cha Eun-gyeong suddenly called Han Yuri to come over. She asked if she was willing to be the mistress's lawyer. After hearing Han Yuri's refusal, Cha Eun-gyeong told the mistress to leave. Later, Cha Eun-gyeong met with Han Yuri alone and admitted that she had once helped Han Yuri's father win a lawsuit against her mother. After her own divorce, Cha Eun-gyeong's perspective on cases had changed. Her actions were meant to make amends for the harm caused to Han Yuri's family. To gain custody of his child, Kim Ji-sung repeatedly disparaged his wife in front of a family affairs investigator. He accused her using the reason that Kim Jae-hee had waited for his mother for 13 years, often crying himself to sleep. Although Cha Eun-gyeong had anticipated Kim Ji-sung would use these reasons to attack her, she couldn't help but cry. Despite realizing Kim Ji-sung was employing despicable tactics, many of his claims were essentially true, making them hard to refute. She had to restrain herself to avoid appearing too distressed. Nevertheless, Cha Eun-gyeong did not plan to give up her daughter's custody. She started to present her case from another angle. She realized the investigator was also a working woman, struggling to balance work and life, just like her. She expressed that no mother would prioritize work over her children and hoped the investigator would understand. Cha Eun-gyeong's words resonated with the investigator, instantly nullifying Kim Ji-sung's previous advantages. Kim Ji-sung described his current situation to his lawyer, who told him these were not key issues. Since Kim Jae-hee was about to enter middle school, the lawyer reminded him that Kim Jae-hee's opinion was now crucial. The investigator would soon interview Kim Jae-hee, and his choice would determine the custody outcome. Choi Sa-ra, anxious about the future, was surprised to find out she was pregnant. Despite Cha Eun-gyeong's husband previously stating he had no plans to remarry, he had to reconsider in light of this new situation. Thinking this over, Choi Sa-ra started forming a new plan. Kim Jae-hee's opinion became the deciding factor for custody. After learning about the day's developments, Han Yuri suggested that Cha Eun-gyeong could set up a room for Kim Jae-hee, just like Kim Ji-sung did. Initially, Cha Eun-gyeong thought these were just superficial efforts and useless. However, Han Yuri explained that the purpose wasn't to please Kim Jae-hee with gifts, but to show a mother's care. That evening, Kim Ji-sung approached Choi Sa-ra, ready to follow his lawyer's advice and sever ties with her. But Choi Sa-ra suddenly revealed her pregnancy, showing him the ultrasound proof. This news panicked Kim Ji-sung, as it disrupted all his plans. The next day, Kim Ji-sung took Kim Jae-hee out, who seemed very happy. However, her mood turned somber when her father mentioned custody, and she left without a word. Shortly after Kim Jae-hee left, Kim Ji-sung received a text from Choi Sa-ra, asking him to accompany her to the gynecologist. That night, Kim Jae-hee stayed at her father's house. While checking the room, she unexpectedly found the ultrasound photo, deliberately placed there by Choi Sa-ra earlier that day to be found by Kim Jae-hee. Knowing what the photo implied, an investigator later approached Kim Jae-hee to ask for her thoughts. Kim Jae-hee did not answer directly. Instead of just expecting honesty from adults, she said she would express her own thoughts truthfully. Before bedtime, Kim Ji-sung suggested telling a story to help Kim Jae-hee fall asleep. However, Kim Jae-hee, who usually enjoyed her father's stories, refused. It wasn't that she didn't want to hear a story, she didn't know how to face a father who was hiding the truth. Meanwhile, Kim Ji-sung also cried outside the room, unsure of what to do. The next morning, Choi Sa-ra suddenly visited, acting as if it were her own home, and demanded Kim Ji-sung accompany her to the gynecologist. Kim Ji-sung firmly refused Choi Sa-ra, feeling exhausted by her presence and unclear why Choi Sa-ra couldn't see it. In fact, Choi Sa-ra didn't care much. She just wanted to know how Kim Ji-sung would choose after the lawsuit ended. To achieve her goal, Choi Sa-ra was unscrupulous. She met Kim Jae-hee again, and when Kim Jae-hee asked if she was pregnant, she feigned surprise. While Kim Jae-hee was staying with Cha Eun-gyeong, the investigator found her again. This time, Kim Jae-hee appeared very happy. Cha Eun-gyeong, waiting outside, was both nervous and anxious, eager to know what Kim Jae-hee would say. Only when she saw Kim Jae-hee come out of the room smiling did Cha Eun-gyeong finally breathe a sigh of relief. After the home investigation was essentially complete, Cha Eun-gyeong met with the investigator, who revealed things that Cha Eun-gyeong did not know. Kim Jae-hee knew about her father's affair before Cha Eun-gyeong did. One time, her husband thought Kim Jae-hee was asleep and couldn't resist being affectionate with Choi Sa-ra at home. Worried about making too much noise, they even double-checked. However, They never expected that Kim Jae-hee was only pretending to sleep. Cha Eun-gyeong was still reeling from these revelations when the investigator told her that Kim Jae-hee already knew she had a half-brother or half-sister. When Cha Eun-gyeong learned that Choi Sa-ra had intentionally revealed her pregnancy to Kim Jae-hee, she could no longer contain her anger and confronted Choi Sa-ra physically. Even at this point, Choi Sa-ra continued to deny involvement, claiming the things Kim Jae-hee discovered had nothing to do with her. Cha Eun-gyeong did not believe a word and was nearly driven mad, determined to settle things with Choi Sa-ra. Choi Sa-ra struggled desperately to protect her unborn child and eventually broke free from Cha Eun-gyeong's grasp, escaping into the house. Helplessly, Cha Eun-gyeong crouched on the ground, unable to imagine the pain Kim Jae-hee felt upon learning the truth. Fortunately, Han Yuri's home was on the same floor. Han Yuri's mother found Cha Eun-gyeong and took her home. With Han Yuri's mother's persuasion and encouragement, Cha Eun-gyeong gradually calmed down. That day, a girl in a similar situation to Choi Sa-ra came to the law firm. As a homewrecker, the girl did not realize her mistake but blamed the man, claiming she would not have been involved if he had not indicated he was about to divorce. Cha Eun-gyeong saw Choi Sa-ra's shadow in this girl. Both had met their partner's husbands through minor opportunities and gradually infiltrated their families. For instance, Choi Sa-ra met Cha Eun-gyeong's husband while handling a task for Cha Eun-gyeong. After learning he was a doctor, she pretended to be unwell to garner his attention, which gradually led him to develop feelings for Choi Sa-ra. He even mistakenly sent Choi Sa-ra a text about considering divorce, which led Choi Sa-ra to take the opportunity to get together with him. This girl's experience was exactly the same, achieving her goals through similar means. After many events, Cha Eun-gyeong became more like a competent mother. Previously, she had never personally picked up Kim Jae-hee from school, but this time she finally took the first step. On the way home, Cha Eun-gyeong tried several times to hold Kim Jae-hee's hand but was unsure how to do it. She couldn't help asking Kim Jae-hee if he felt wronged. Kim Jae-hee understood his mother's intentions and promised her he would not meet Choi Sa-ra again. On the other hand, Cha Eun-gyeong's husband also found out that Choi Sa-ra had told Kim Jae-hee about her pregnancy, leading to a confrontation where he demanded that she never appear before him again and denied paternity of her child. The troubles didn't stop there. Choi Sa-ra had not yet recovered from the accusations of Cha Eun-gyeong's husband when she received a court summons. The next day, Han Yuri received a plaintiff's document. The defendant was the girl who played a similar role to Choi Sa-ra the previous day. In the document, she detailed the girl's relationship with the plaintiff's husband. The plaintiff had long known about her husband's affair, but chose self-deception due to her pregnancy. During the pregnancy, the husband repeatedly demanded marital relations, which the wife refused for the sake of the fetus. Finally, as the child was about to be born, the girl could not resist calling to reveal her identity. After the child was born, the plaintiff's husband knelt before his wife, begging her to help resolve the issue with the girl and apologizing for his infidelity, claiming it was all because they could not have intercourse. After the incident, the plaintiff confronted the girl, but the girl blamed the plaintiff for not keeping her husband in check. Han Yuri, understanding the full story, although she was the defendant's lawyer, felt she couldn't easily exonerate the defendant. Cha Eun-gyeong, looking at the documents sent by the plaintiff, offered no favorable comments, merely stating coldly that she had put herself in the plaintiff's shoes. At the mediation, Cha Eun-gyeong suggested to the plaintiff that instead of accepting a large compensation, it would be better to have the defendant make a sincere apology. The defendant sincerely apologized in front of everyone, and the plaintiff eventually chose to settle and forgive her cheating husband. Do you think the defendant truly repented? Not really. All this was prearranged by Cha Eun-gyeong. After the issue was resolved, the defendant had already forgotten her apology and even praised Cha Eun-gyeong for her brilliance in front of her. Unable to tolerate her hypocrisy, Cha Eun-gyeong confronted her, saying, "Do you think it's because of my competence that you didn't have to pay alimony? It's because the plaintiff only wanted your apology. I just found that out and hoped your apology would be somewhat sincere." The apology Cha Eun-gyeong spoke of, which the plaintiff wanted, was also what she herself desired. In fact, before guiding the defendant to apologize, Cha Eun-gyeong had spoken to the plaintiff, who told her directly that she just wanted a sincere apology. Cha Eun-gyeong thought to herself that perhaps she also just wanted a sincere apology from the other party. Although Han Yuri had fallen asleep, she understood what Cha Eun-gyeong wanted and went to persuade Choi Sara to apologize to Cha Eun-gyeong. The next day, under the watchful eyes of many former colleagues, Choi Sara entered Cha Eun-gyeong's office and knelt to apologize directly. She just wanted to live well on her own. Cha Eun-gyeong told her bluntly to get out. After Choi Sara left, Han Yuri approached and asked Cha Eun-gyeong how she felt, encouraging her to hold on a little longer as everything was almost over. Cha Eun-gyeong thought that even a pretense of an apology would suffice to tell her son, Kim Jae-hee, that mom had received an apology and everything was okay. That evening, mother and son cooked dinner together. Suddenly, Kim Jae-hee apologized to his mother. Cha Eun-gyeong realized that children often take on the faults of others, while adults tend to avoid them. She hugged her daughter and apologized. The mother and daughter embraced tightly. For those who are desperate, even a false apology can be a lifeline. Kim Jae-hee cannot forgive her father for his infidelity during marriage and his ongoing deception. Therefore, she chooses to live with her mother. Kim Ji-sung finds this hard to accept, suspecting that Cha Eun-gyeong is maliciously driving a wedge between him and his daughter. Unaware that he remains unrepentant to this day, the pair argue heatedly until a family mediator intervenes. Unable to lose his daughter, Kim Ji-sang seeks another conversation with her. After leaving, he confronts Cha Eun-gyeong again, warning her not to disrupt his relationship with his daughter post-divorce, and suggests they part amicably. His words leave Cha Eun-gyeong bemused. Returning home, Kim Ji-sung is furious to find Choi Sara has entered. His anger, compounded by the loss of his daughter's custody, is wrongly directed at Choi Sara. Unfazed, she is relieved he is finally alone. In a physical scuffle, Choi Sara accidentally hits her stomach on the table corner, leading to a miscarriage. Realizing she has lost her last leverage over men and that he never loved her, Choi Sara feels utterly disillusioned. After severing ties with Kim Ji-sung, she leaves the place of heartbreak. Meanwhile, Kim Ji-sung persists in seeking custody and visits Kim Jae-hee's school. Seeing her estrangement, he is deeply upset, but still invites her to his home. Preparing for a final effort, Kim Ji-sung asks his daughter if she wants his homemade egg rolls, her favorite dish. Kim Jae-hee shows no interest and comments that her mother's cooking tastes better now. Kim Ji-sung feels dejected, aware that his daughter is upset about his new girlfriend. He sincerely apologizes, assuring her that his love for her remains unchanged. However, Kim Jae-hee is more concerned about her father's lies. She recounts discovering his infidelity during a stay at Aunt Choi Sara's, arranged by Cha Eun-gyeong due to work commitments. Devastated, she debated telling her mother but held back, fearing it would hurt her. Despite initially breaking up, her parents resumed their relationship, openly holding hands beneath their home. This completely disappointed Kim Jae-hee. Refusing to accept her father's apologies, she had previously given him a chance to explain his relationship with Aunt Choi Sara. Yet, he remained untruthful until she found a sonogram. Panicked, Kim Ji-sung falsely claims that Choi Sara was not pregnant, and it was a hospital's misdiagnosis. Kim Jae-hee no longer trusts him. To make amends, Kim Ji-sung relinquishes his custody rights and agrees to only receive a third of the assets during mediation. Signing the divorce papers, he reminisces about marrying Cha Eun-gyeong, their struggles, and memories of their daughter, prompting him to reflect on his infidelity. What was once a happy family crumbled due to his mistake. He felt deep remorse. Hearing his long overdue apology, Cha Eun-gyeong felt a great relief. As she walked out of the courtroom, she experienced an unprecedented sense of freedom. Back home, she and her daughter tacitly packed away everything related to Kim Ji-sung, ready to start anew. However, Cha Eun-gyeong was unaware that she was about to be dismissed from her law firm. She had recently received a termination notice, which she found unbelievable. Her boss was adamant, stating the firm would operate fine without her. This remark made her years of hard work seem wasted. Yet, she was not discouraged and began to seek new opportunities. After applying for leave, Cha Eun-gyeong took her daughter on a trip. As soon as she left, chaos ensued at the law firm. Particularly, Han Yuri, lacking her mentor's assistance, was overwhelmed. Han Yuri had just taken on a case where a male university student was sued for seducing someone's wife. The student claimed he was the one seduced and was unaware she was married. However, evidence suggested he knew she was married. Han Yuri was struggling with the case and initially sought Cha Eun-gyeong's help, but she was not in the office. She then turned to Jung Woo-jin for assistance. Jung Woo-jin, after reviewing the case, suspected the student might be innocent as the situation seemed too perfect. He theorized that the student might have fallen into a scam orchestrated by the couple. Half convinced, Han Yuri remembered the student mention meeting the woman on a dating app. Thus, she contacted Jeon Eun-ho. She asked him to also register on that app and successfully matched with the plaintiff's wife. He discovered she not only lied about her age, but also frequently trapped young male university students on the app. Han Yuri advised her client not to apologize to the plaintiff, as it would imply he acknowledged being the third party. However, the next day, the plaintiff threatened the student at his school, demanding money or he would expose the affair throughout the school. The student, fearing for his reputation, considered settling with money. Han Yuri strongly dissuaded him, and then had Jeon Eun-ho arrange to meet the woman for tennis. As soon as they met, the woman tried to seduce him while her husband secretly filmed them. Han Yuri suspected the couple knew exactly what evidence was needed for an adultery lawsuit, hence their bold extortion. She felt it was time to end this. She had Jeon Eun-ho meet the woman again, bluntly throwing the photos in front of her and publicly exposing her scheme. Han Yuri threatened to sue her for fraud and obstruction of business unless she withdrew her claims. The woman panicked, apologized to the student, and called her husband to drop the lawsuit. Han Yuri secretly recorded her conversation, warning her not to repeat her actions. After resolving the case, Han Yuri felt very happy. However, she then received a call from Cha Eun-gyeong, who was crying on the other end. Cha Eun-gyeong, who was traveling, ran into trouble because she did not know her daughter often suffered from indigestion and severe abdominal pain, hence had not prepared medicine in the car. Seeing Kim Jae-hee enduring silently, Cha Eun-gyeong felt very guilty. Finally arriving at the camping site, Cha Eun-gyeong had no experience setting up tents. She could only look at the manual and force a smile. Once the tent was up, Cha Eun-gyeong started to cook instant noodles. She casually checked her phone but received no messages. Happily, she handed the noodles to her daughter, unaware that her daughter disliked onions. Kim Jae-hee suddenly missed her father, who used to take care of her meals. To avoid upsetting her mother, she said it was okay and asked not to include onions next time but to add an egg instead. At that moment, a female fan recognized Cha Eun-gyeong and enthusiastically brought her a plate of fruit. The mother and daughter were initially happy until the fan mentioned that Cha Eun-gyeong's husband had an affair with his secretary, leaving them in a pitiful state. The comment was loud enough to embarrass them both, causing distraction throughout their activities. After putting her daughter to sleep that night, Cha Eun-gyeong occasionally looked at her phone, hoping someone would contact her. She realized she might not have been balancing her responsibilities at work and home well. The next day, trying to make up for it, Cha Eun-gyeong took her daughter biking, but they fell due to speeding. At the hospital, Kim Jae-hee wanted to call her father to come and take care of her, causing Cha Eun-gyeong to panic. Although she felt inadequate as a mother, she was trying hard. Yet, Kim Jae-hee missed her father. After putting her daughter to sleep, Cha Eun-gyeong sat on a bench, overwhelmed with emotion, and called Han Yuri. She wants to apply for after-sales service because Cha Eun-gyeong feels that neither at work nor at home does anyone need her. Meanwhile, Jung Woo-jin constantly misses the days when he worked with Cha Eun-gyeong. To keep Cha Eun-gyeong at the law firm, he proactively approached his father, asking him to hand over the firm to him. After receiving Cha Eun-gyeong's request for after-sales service, Han Yuri had to take on a case to prove that Eun-gyeong was needed everywhere. This case seemed undoubtedly winnable. The boss had taken it to ensure the law firm's survival, involving a wealthy client who regularly collaborated with the firm. The plaintiff repeatedly filed for divorce, only to withdraw the cases later. To resolve this issue once and for all, the court decided to dismiss the case outright. Compared to the experienced Cha Eun-gyeong, the defendant chose the novice lawyer Han Yuri, thinking a newcomer would be easier to manipulate. The boss also preferred not to have Eun-gyeong, who was well known and could attract media attention, handle this high-profile divorce. Eun-gyeong's stubborn nature might not meet the defendant's needs. Han Yuri knew she was not qualified for the case, and she would need Eun-gyeong's help to manage it. Handling it alone was too challenging, prompting the boss to agree to keep Eun-gyeong temporarily. Han Yuri knew that firing Eun-gyeong could further hurt her already wounded spirit. The plaintiff claimed the defendant tortured her with water, causing her to develop aquaphobia, and dragged her by the hair, causing her scalp to show signs of hair loss. However, she had no evidence of domestic violence, making it likely the case would be dismissed, a sentiment Eun-gyeong shared. To ensure Eun-gyeong stayed at the firm, Han Yuri had to win the case. As expected, during the trial, the plaintiff failed to provide evidence of abuse, and the allegations were dismissed. Unbeknownst to them, the defendant had found and destroyed all evidence. Han Yuri countersued, claiming the plaintiff filed lawsuits frequently to extort money, showing evidence of transfers to the plaintiff. However, the plaintiff said she withdrew the cases out of fear, as the defendant threatened her life each time. The judge could only hope for a settlement to reconcile the relationship. Han Yuri saw the woman's despair and helplessness. She didn't know what the plaintiff had really been through. In the restroom, she unexpectedly bumped into the plaintiff. Just as she turned on the tap, the plaintiff looked terrified. Han Yuri also noticed small bald spots on the plaintiff's head. It seemed the plaintiff did have some evidence of domestic violence. Han Yuri immediately went to ask the defendant if there had been any domestic violence. However, her public questioning and confrontational attitude angered the defendant. He told Han Yuri to never appear before him again. Since the law firm's boss had already filed for a change in legal representation, Jung Woo-jin was about to officially become the boss of the law firm. But he wanted to tell Cha Eun-gyeong personally before making it public. Choosing to keep this a secret, the boss respected his decision. When Cha Eun-gyeong heard this, she took it differently. Feeling aggrieved, Han Yuri wanted to explain to Eun-gyeong why she took the case. But Cha Eun-gyeong had no patience to listen and even wanted to withdraw after sales service. Han Yuri realized she couldn't use the law as a weapon, as there was little she could do to help the victim. Soon, Jung Woo-jin received a request from the defendant to change lawyers. He thought instead of one lawyer fighting alone, it would be better to add Cha Eun-gyeong as a co-counsel to increase the chances of a successful defense. Cha Eun-gyeong felt bad for driving Han Yuri away. Realizing her mistake, she immediately went to apologize to Han Yuri, knowing Han Yuri was doing this to save her position. She then invited Han Yuri to help her conclude the case for the defendant. The two shared a smile as if all grievances had never happened. During mediation, the plaintiff unexpectedly produced a recording indicating the defendant asked her to go to the pool to overcome her fear of water. The defendant demanded marital relations daily, and if she disagreed, she would face water torture. However, the defendant claimed he registered for the hotel's pool membership to treat the plaintiff's aquaphobia and could even provide pool access records. The plaintiff cried and denied this, asking if only her death could end it all. The committee had no choice but to mediate them separately, saying the defendant was a wolf in sheep's clothing. In public, he acted like a perfect gentleman, but at home, his true nature showed. He even checked her phone every night, ensuring she couldn't keep any evidence. This made the defendant overly confident, believing that the pool entry and exit records would easily discredit the plaintiff's evidence. With this in mind, the committee suggested they separate temporarily. As they were leaving, the defendant tried to threaten the plaintiff. Cha Eun-gyeong immediately said she needed to discuss something with the defendant, and Han Yuri asked the plaintiff to leave immediately. The defendant was very dissatisfied with the mediation outcome, insultingly told Han Yuri to leave, and even threatened her. Cha Eun-gyeong suspected the defendant might cause serious trouble. That day, to clarify her position, the law firm's boss introduced Cha Eun-gyeong to the defendant and his son. This revealed to Cha Eun-gyeong that Jung Woo-jin was the heir to the law firm, a secret her trusted colleague of over a decade had kept from her. She realized that Jung Woo-jin's motivation to win the case was strictly for the firm's financial benefit. Returning to the office, Cha Eun-gyeong found the defendant waiting for a long time. At this point, he dropped his pretense, admitted to domestic violence, and threatened to kill the plaintiff if Cha Eun-gyeong did not dismiss the lawsuit. Consequently, Cha Eun-gyeong decided to withdraw from the case with Han Yuri. Han Yuri had reminded her that the defendant was in the office, so she turned on a recorder and captured everything the defendant said. Recently, after the domestic abuser asked Cha Eun-gyeong to visit his home, realizing he might be up to something serious, she rushed to the scene. The place was a mess. and her heart was in her throat. The more she feared something, the more likely it seemed to happen. She tried to call for help, but the abuser grabbed her phone and threw it away. Cha Eun-gyeong watched in horror as the victim lost her life right in front of her. Terrified, she wanted to call the police, but the abuser cornered her against the wall, planning to use his money to get her to help him obtain a lighter sentence. When Cha Eun-gyeong refused to cooperate, the abusive man immediately threatened her life, knowing her daughter's importance to her. He also involved Kim Jae-hee in the situation. Outside, when Han Yuri noticed Cha Eun-gyeong had not emerged for a long time, she promptly called the police. Meanwhile, Cha Eun-gyeong seized the opportunity to knock the abuser to the ground with her phone and fled, mirroring how his wife had escaped. Fortunately, she cleverly hid in a corner, avoiding detection by the abuser. When the abuser saw the police car, he knew he could not escape. As he was being taken away, he threatened Han Yuri. During the investigation, Han Yuri thought about what Cha Eun-gyeong had said regarding the potential negative impact on the firm if it was revealed she was at the crime scene. So, she lied, claiming she had received a call from the abuser and went to the scene alone. Once home safely, Cha Eun-gyeong immediately checked on Han Yuri. Both were safe, which eased their worries slightly, but they still faced significant troubles ahead. Cha Eun-gyeong regretted getting involved in a murder case and worried about her future and protecting her daughter. This was the first time Han Yuri experienced a crime scene and the abuser's threats, leaving her in extreme panic. Soon, the news broke, and public opinion quickly turned against the lawyers, associating them with the abuser. Han Yuri inadvertently became the only witness, with public speculation suggesting she was an accomplice. The company faced severe difficulties as a result. There was speculation about some kind of financial dealings between the large conglomerates and the law firm. Cha Eun-gyeong did not understand how she, having been at the scene, was not recognized as the witness instead of Han Yuri. However, Han Yuri was not worried about online rumors, believing the truth would eventually come out. Meanwhile, colleagues worried about her being targeted, and journalists camped at the firm's doors, prompting her to stay home while the firm handled the aftermath. The first public hearing soon arrived, but the abuser was unconcerned, knowing his father had already arranged everything in his favor. The prosecution reiterated the facts, stating the abuser had assaulted the victim upon receiving divorce papers, striking her head multiple times. The victim died from intracranial hemorrhage. As a result, the abusive man was charged with manslaughter. However, his defense lawyer claimed he had a mental illness. The victim's mother stood up and accused the abuser. It turned out that on the day of the incident, the victim had fled to her parents' house seeking help. But the abuser, always appearing as the perfect son-in-law in front of her parents, didn't even open the door. The mother, full of regret, blamed herself for her daughter's death. That same evening, Cha Eun-gyeong was unable to contact her daughter and, remembering the threats from the abuser, was terrified that her inattention could lead to harm coming to her daughter. Fortunately, it was a false alarm. Kim Jae-hee had simply gone to karaoke with classmates and hadn't heard her phone due to the loud music. Unaware of what had occurred, Kim Jae-hee sensed her mother's panic and reassured her that she was doing the right thing and that their lives would improve day by day. Soon, the second trial began, and the prosecution changed the charge to premeditated murder. The abuser was indignant, believing it was impossible for him to be convicted of premeditated murder. The prosecution brought in a new witness, Cha Eun-gyeong. However, the abuser maintained his innocence, noting that Cha Eun-gyeong had arrived after the victim had died. In court, Cha Eun-gyeong testified that upon her arrival, the victim was still clinging to life. To prevent her from calling an ambulance, the abuser threw her phone aside. She witnessed the victim's death, and the abuser shamelessly commented, "I hit you so hard, and you're still not dead?" He thought the victim was already dead when he called her, unaware that his frequent threats of killing had made Cha Eun-gyeong wary. The courtroom was in uproar when this recording was played. Meanwhile, Han Yuri, wanting to ensure that all of Cha Eun-gyeong's efforts were not in vain, demonstrated outside the court. She believed there were flaws in the current legal system that failed to allow for divorce without solid evidence. Certainly, there are many who suffer in marriage because they cannot provide evidence. If this issue is not addressed, there will be countless future victims like Liu Jiying. She calls for everyone to focus on this topic to improve the laws. Her colleagues at the company noticed her actions immediately. Afterwards, Jong Eun-ho and his colleagues joined Han Yuri to promote awareness of legal issues. Han Yuri actively participated in media interviews to clarify the facts for Cha Eun-gyeong, calling her the bravest person she has ever known. Although Cha Eun-gyeong verbally reproached Han Yuri for taking matters into her own hands, she was actually very relieved. With Cha Eun-gyeong's testimony and public backlash, the abusive man was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Changing the charge is uncommon and easily attracts media attention. While seeking justice for the victim, Cha Eun-gyeong hoped the case would raise awareness about domestic violence and encourage more victims to escape the abyss. Cha Eun-gyeong gave Han Yuri the opportunity to make the final statement. Han Yuri said that all the staff at their law firm, despite facing difficulties, did their utmost to seek justice for the victims, hoping those who ended their lives could rest in peace. It was unexpected that after overcoming such challenges, Cha Eun-gyeong chose to leave.
나는 이 회사에서 독립할 테니까 은견은 나한테서 독립해.
After the rich second-generation husband was sentenced for murdering his wife, Cha Eun-gyeong told Han Yuri about her plans to leave the company and start her own firm, encouraging Han Yuri to take charge after her departure. The next day, with her colleagues' farewell, Cha Eun-gyeong left the law firm where she had worked for 15 years. The following day, she began searching for suitable office space, and after a day's search, she found a villa with an exotic flair. Cha Eun-gyeong promptly signed the lease with the agent and began buying furniture. After a thorough cleaning, Cha Eun-gyeong's new office was ready for a fresh start. However, starting a business was tough, and she had no clients for half a month. One morning, as Cha Eun-gyeong was opening her office, a courier delivered a letter from Park Young-jin, who was detained in jail for fraud. He requested a consultation visit at the detention center. Cha Eun-gyeong hurried to the jail, questioned Park Young-jin, and presented a contract for him to sign. It turned out he tried to trick her into depositing a retainer fee, promising to sign the contract on her next visit. Angered, Cha Eun-gyeong took back her pen and contract, warning Park Young-jin not to send her any more letters. Returning to the office, Cha Eun-gyeong was extremely frustrated. She worried about paying rent without any clients. As she was about to leave for dinner, she ran into Han Yuri, who had come with flowers. Cha Eun-gyeong asked how she found the place. Han Yuri didn't answer but expressed a desire to see the office, which Cha Eun-gyeong, eager to close up, refused, saying she would invite them over another time. Later at a barbecue restaurant, Cha Eun-gyeong shared the day's events regarding Park Young-jin with Han Yuri. After dinner, Han Yuri told Cha Eun-gyeong about Jung Woo-jin, asking if she wanted to transfer to another department. She hoped for some valuable advice, but Cha Eun-gyeong told her that only she could know the right answer. The next day, Cha Eun-gyeong's law firm welcomed a client, Mrs. Park, who had previously sought mediation and had now decided to divorce her husband. Although Cha Eun-gyeong was eager to take on the case, she knew Han Yuri was better suited for it and recommended Mrs. Park to her. Meanwhile, at Dajong Law Firm, a woman arrived claiming her husband had kicked her out. She pleaded for legal help. Just then, Han Yuri arrived at work. Recognizing her from TV, the woman hoped Han Yuri would help her seek justice. In the meeting room, Han Yuri handed her a business card, calling her the best lawyer she knew and giving her the address to go to. Right after the woman left, Mrs. Park arrived at Han Yuri's office, determined to proceed with the divorce and urging Han Yuri to prepare the contract quickly. That evening, as Cha Eun-gyeong was preparing to leave work, she heard a knock at the door. It was the same woman Han Yuri had referred. She shared her plight with Cha Eun-gyeong, working in the fields early morning, washing dishes at a restaurant by noon, and cleaning buildings in her spare time to support her family. Her husband only gambled, taking her salary as soon as she earned it, leaving her with only rice and kimchi to eat. Her husband's gambling worsened, squandering even their valuable possessions and the house. He then turned to the plot of land left by his mother-in-law, worth 1 billion won. Hearing its value, the woman hid his seal. Desperate, her husband searched the house and, failing to find the seal, violently assaulted her and eventually threw her out, heartlessly abandoning her. After hearing her story, Cha Eun-gyeong was relieved that the woman still had a piece of land when she came to her. If she could prove the gambling, it could be grounds for divorce. However, the woman revealed to Cha Eun-gyeong that her marriage was not legally registered, which worried her about claiming any property. Cha Eun-gyeong reassured her that she would help secure the money. She suggested a precautionary lien on the land to prevent her husband from transferring the property. When her husband learned of this, he was unconcerned, believing she couldn't sue him legally without a marriage certificate. Yet, after 26 years together, the evidence was clear enough for the court to treat it as a marriage. Cha Eun-gyeong proposed a mediation plan, demanding 300 million won as settlement from the husband. She cleverly played on his gambler's mindset, hinting that the land's value might increase and his wife could demand more in the future. Reluctant to pay more later, he agreed to pay the 300 million won. Later, Cha Eun-gyeong found out that Han Yuri had referred the woman to her. That day, Cha Eun-gyeong received another letter from the detention center. This time, Park Young-jin didn't delay, but requested to sign a contract and presented a stack of fellow inmates' divorce petitions, asking Cha Eun-gyeong to handle them too. Surprisingly, her next case involved Han Yuri as the opposing lawyer. They could not reach an agreement in mediation and had to confront each other in court. Cha Eun-gyeong and Han Yuri became the lawyers representing the opposing sides in a couple's dispute. The wife, represented by Cha Eun-gyeong, complained that her husband always avoided marital responsibilities, despite being only in his 30s. He seemed as frail as an 80-year-old, while the husband sought representation from Han Yuri. The wife complained that her husband demanded intimacy multiple times a day, which was physically exhausting for her. This issue led to frequent arguments and ultimately to their decision to divorce. Both parties wanted to file as the plaintiff, believing that being the defendant seemed like being ousted. They asked Cha Eun-gyeong and Han Yuri to file the suits quickly and were adamant about not settling. Although the wife first provided recordings of her husband making excuses over the phone to avoid marital relations, she was a step behind. Han Yuri filed the suit first. It was not until Cha Eun-gyeong saw the complaint that she realized she was directly opposing Han Yuri. As the wife's lawyer, Cha Eun-gyeong confronted Han Yuri, accusing her of mishandling the suit by claiming the wife was addicted to marital relations, a point Han Yuri saw no issue with. Despite Cha Eun-gyeong's attempts to persuade her as a mentor, Han Yuri, now more assertive, did not yield. When Cha Eun-gyeong questioned how to prove the wife's alleged addiction, Han Yuri even refused to respond. Both parties were unwilling to mediate, but the mediator brought them together as per procedure. In front of everyone, the wife openly criticized her husband's sexual capabilities. In response, the husband straightforwardly stated that the wife had quit her job immediately after getting married, as if it had been her plan all along. The mediator, understanding their resolve, repeatedly warned that if the case went to court, it could take a long time to resolve. Both parties were indifferent and expressed their willingness to appeal repeatedly if necessary. Such cases, long and drawn out, are generally undesirable for lawyers, including Han Yuri and Cha Eun-gyeong. At the daytime mediation session, Cha Eun-gyeong discovered that the reason for the couple's desire to divorce was not due to dissatisfaction with their marital life. Thus, she hoped the wife would discuss the matter more deeply with her. It turned out that the couple had previously visited a hospital where they learned the wife might have a low probability of natural conception due to health issues. Believing her husband was eager to have children, the wife secretly visited the hospital again and was advised by the doctor to consider quitting her job as stress reduction could increase the chances of pregnancy. Meanwhile, the husband disclosed to Han Yuri that he had never really wanted children. The whole situation was a misunderstanding by the wife. After marriage, he was open to the idea of having children, but since his wife quit her job, he was the sole earner. He knew his income was not sufficient to support both of them, which led him to consider divorce. Essentially, the couple's lack of communication had caused misunderstandings. After Han Yuri and Cha Eun-gyeong exchanged what they knew, they brought the couple back to mediation. During this session, the couple finally realized the root of their problems. However, even after clearing up the misunderstandings, they still planned to divorce. Initially, Han Yuri couldn't understand why they would still want to divorce after everything had been clarified. Cha Eun-gyeong explained that divorce was merely the end of the marriage, not the relationship. Surprisingly, Jong Eun-ho announced his departure from the law firm and moved to Cha Eun-gyeong's firm. Initially, Cha Eun-gyeong thought her reputation alone would continuously attract clients, but she soon realized her approach was flawed. Therefore, she personally approached attorney John and poached him from Jongdae Law Firm. With Jong Eun-ho's addition, issues within Cha Eun-gyeong's law firm were quickly identified. First, he set up social media accounts to facilitate searches. Then, He sent out texts announcing the firm's opening to all his contacts, urging Cha Eun-gyeong to do the same. These efforts significantly boosted the firm's business. During a meal with Jung Eun-ho, Cha Eun-gyeong revealed that it was actually Jung Woo-jin's idea to recruit Jung Eun-ho, and that Jung Woo-jin had recommended him. Cha Eun-gyeong's law firm has been thriving since Jung Eun-ho joined. Han Yuri's firm welcomed a new lawyer similar to when she first arrived, except now Han Yuri is in the position Cha Eun-gyeong once held. Han Yuri now understands why Cha Eun-gyeong encouraged her to separate her personal feelings from her professional mindset, to consider things from other perspectives. The new lawyer's approach is strikingly similar to Han Yuri's initial style. Han Yuri's first lesson to the newcomer was to repeat what Cha Eun-gyeong had once advised her, to buy a car and a watch, emphasizing that time is precious for lawyers. The last case involved the father of Jung Woo-jin, who was raised by his stepmother. The representative and his stepmother had lived separately for years. He believed that his stepmother treated him as a tool for making money, while she felt he treated her merely as a nanny. Tired of this, she approached Han Yuri to file for divorce. With the firm's top lawyer gone, he could only turn to former top lawyer Cha Eun-gyeong. From his descriptions, Cha Eun-gyeong realized she did not agree with the divorce and still had feelings for him. She called Han Yuri, suggesting that if they couldn't reconcile, they would need to act as translators, conveying their true feelings without pride interfering. With Han Yuri and Cha Eun-gyeong's mediation, the representative realized his own issues. In front of them, he knelt and apologized to his stepmother. Moved by his gesture, they embraced, abandoning thoughts of divorce. The term mom and dad had not been used by Jung Woo-jin for a long time, but he spontaneously used it that day, bringing joy to both the stepmother and himself. Han Yuri and Jung Eun-ho got together, while Jung Woo-jin chose to keep his feelings for Cha Eun-gyeong to himself. Cha Eun-gyeong brought Kim Jae-hee to meet her former husband, restoring their father-daughter bond. The story ends with Cha Eun-gyeong and Han Yuri frequently handling similar cases, often opposing each other in court, advocating passionately for their clients.